James Ashby from One Nation joins us. Well, she's of no fixed address politically, but we know it's Labor. Is none other than the lovely Linda Scott. Hello and lovely to see you both. So, James, we talked about Nature Positive. In fact, you were the first person to turn me on to what was happening with Nature Positive. But because they couldn't do a deal with the Greens, it's all been withdrawn. But the Prime Minister goes on television and says, no, it's still ready to go. Tell us what the original government idea is, right? The one that if they got a majority in the Senate, they would still pass.
Well, Paul, the whole idea of this nature positive bill, there's nothing positive about it. I might just say to all your viewers out there, they're trying to sell it as this, this is an easy path for mines to get approved and environmental projects will just slip right through. No, it's far from that. In fact, they've been very open and honest in their what very little information they have revealed to the public. They want to lock up 30% of the land, 30% of the oceans. That's put simple to anyone at home. And you can't do that without shutting down big projects, including mining, including fishing. And who's going to pay for that? We all are, because our industries here, particularly in the mining and commercial fishing, they're what feed us, they're what feed the economy. They give plenty of jobs right across the country. And when you've got big players coming in making multi-billion-dollar decisions on where they put their money, Australia is not fit for purpose as it sits right now, especially with this legislation hanging over people's heads, because what used to be 6 months to get a coal mine approved here in Queensland is now up to 19 years. That's the reality of where the EPBC Act is at the present moment, and they want to put another layer or two of bureaucracy over the top of that with what they call the Nature Positive Bill. It's all bad news. Let's hope like hell that they never get it through between now and the election. Of course, you know, with all this speculation of an early election, it may not get up, but it's never dead until this government is gone. That's the simple fact.
100%. The same with the censoring of the internet stuff. Absolutely. Linda, why are we wrong?
Look, the Nature Positive Bill is a really fantastic one for a couple of reasons, because it gives you a federal regulator to protect people's clean water, clean environment, clean air.
An EPA.
These are the kinds of things that are actually really critical to healthy people, healthy communities, healthy lives. Most states have EPAs. They function really well. They're not shutting down the projects.
So why
like
duplicate
it?
Why duplicate
from James Ashby. They're actually improving people's health and improving the health of their local environment. These things are really positive things, and they're good for people and good for communities. The Prime Minister has given a commitment that the bills will be back in Parliament when Parliament is due to meet in February again. And here's the question that the Greens are going to have to talk to their communities about in Ryan, in Melbourne, in Brisbane, in Griffith. You could have had nature positive laws passed today. You could have had, to all those Green voters, you could have had a national environmental protection
I love that you
agency,
think you're watching us.
But the Greens voted against it, and so that's why this bill went down. And similarly, Peter Dutton to the coalition, right? He's going to have to make a case to all those voters in Teal seats,
correct.
Page, Curtin, Goldstein. I could go on and on and on. Those communities want protection for the environment, and they could have had them had the coalition voted for these laws last week.
Yeah, I don't want to go round and round on this forever, but I do want to ask James one more question on this, though, which is, in Western Australia, the heritage laws were so bad that they sort of sunk the voice before it started to sink everywhere else around the country. Queensland wasn't going for it at all. But basically, this was not going to happen, right, in part. Roger Cook, West Australian Premier, turns around and says, mate, please don't put these things in place, because basically, double click, exactly the same effect. But if Albo's still saying this thing's still coming, then what are they trying to do? Are they trying to assume most people are so stupid that they'll think that these things have been thrown in the bin? Because I'm pretty sure people like yourself and active parties like One Nation will be more than willing to tell them what's still on the table.
Well, Paul, that was the Cultural Heritage Bill that passed over in WA, and it caused all sorts of mayhem, not just for the mining industry, but for farmers or anyone with a slightly bigger housing block. You weren't even allowed to put a concrete driveway on your own property without seeking cultural approval to have that happen. We've got that right across the country. Now, this is worse, and Linda is right. We have got states with environmental protection groups already established. Why are we duplicating it? As far as I'm concerned, this should be scrapped altogether. We have so much duplication on a federal level. It doesn't matter whether it's education, whether it's the health minister. All these things belong as decisions to the states. So the last thing we need to be doing is making it more and more difficult for investment to occur in this country. And the number one group of people that will be affected are every one of those blue-collar workers that work in, it doesn't matter whether it's a gold mine or iron ore or a coal mine, any new future projects, because as we know, the projects that you're working on will come to an end of life at some point. And unless there's future projects in the pipeline, you're not going to have a job to go to into the future. Good luck trying to get yourself a job that pays similar money, because it won't exist in the renewables. You'll be put into that queue of learning how to make coffees for all those people that will be, on the train, because that will be all that's left. Baristed gigs.
Yeah, well, until, of course, AI takes over that and everything else in the next little while. All right, we know we're in the fake election campaign now. Between now and when either Parliament does or doesn't, most likely, in my view, doesn't, come back, early election is announced as soon as Australia Day, a week after, 2 weeks. Anyway, I want to ask a slightly different way to talk about this issue, though, Linda, which is you're going to have like 90 seconds each. Okay, free advice. How do you think, if you could give the Prime Minister advice, you would stop Peter Dutton and get yourself re-elected?
Look, again, the Prime Minister does not need my advice, and I think the government's done the work. Cheaper childcare, increased wages, tax cuts of billions of dollars to every Australian that Australians would not have gotten under the coalition. Your free TAFE, cheaper medicines. I could go on and on and on about all the things that Labor and the Prime Minister have delivered. But let's be clear,
left all those people
if you look across the world, and if you look, recently in elections,
yes.
Labor will be the underdog. They will be the underdog because at the moment in the world, elections right across the world, underdogs are having a tough time.
So what's Dutton's soft belly that you'd poke at?
I think he's got to tell people why he thinks nuclear power plants that can't be built for decades will deliver cheaper power to communities. They won't. He's got to tell them why there was no research done on the land that these power plants were promised on, why communities weren't consulted.
So you're going all in on nuke.
Outline a vision. He's got to outline a vision for the future of Australia. And all he's done so far is just block bills, block ideas, block progress. He's just so negative.
Well, perhaps when you think somebody's doing the wrong thing and you keep saying no, I don't know that that's negative, but still, I was going to say I didn't interrupt you, and then I realised I interrupted you for the whole time.
Pretty well. I mean, credit.
Yeah, I did my best. You wait till the bold predictions where I do bite my tongue as best I can. James, reverse though. Free advice. How does somebody take on Albo?
Look, the Labor Party will be going in as the underdog, but the problem is you've got at least 35% of the Australian population that don't want to vote for either of the two major parties. One Nation, we know we're not going to be government in this next term of Parliament. I'd hoped that we have more of a say in our Senate. I hope that One Nation win seats there, but it's going to take bold ideas. It's going to take a reversal of the path that we've been on for the last 3 years under this government, but more importantly, the path that the coalition have been distracted to go down in the past 15 years. And I think the number one priority for the next government would have to be to ensure that we don't allow the volumes of people into this country that we've been taking. Well, you cannot accept 1 million people into a country and still expect to house them and provide a cheap way of life when rental prices are going through the roof. So there's got to be a bold stance on immigration. I also think too, we're certainly going to be taking the argument to the Australian people that we've got to make citizenship tougher to get. And if you're a bad bugger, you won't get citizenship in this country. I'm tired of those dead shits that we allow into this country, and we simply give them citizenship within a couple of years, and they play up to such a point we can't get rid of them. So we've got to make it harder. There's going to be a whole raft of bold initiatives that need to be taken from the Conservatives if we're to roll this government.
Geez, I know he just had a little practice, but mate, anytime you want to run for the Senate or somewhere else, run, James, run. I love that stuff. Notice, Linda, I didn't interrupt him because I don't disagree. Sadly, that's just the way it works when you have the show.
I disagree with almost everything he just
I have
said,
no doubt. What a Christmas party it'd
we
be.
know that.